Smokey Robinson just dropped a bombshell, and fans can't believe it. From a tough childhood to wild fame, addiction, and heartbreak, he's finally telling the full story. It's raw, it's real, and it's not what you expected. Let's dive into the dark truth Smokey's been hiding for years.
So my mom passed when I was 10. And then my older sister, who had 6 kids of her own by that time, came back to live in the house. And she ended up having 10 kids, so that's how. My nieces and nephews are actually like my brothers and sisters, and there were 11 of us.
Smokey Robinson didn't grow up with money or fame. He was born in Detroit in 1940 and raised in a rough neighborhood. His early life was full of struggle, but it also built the fire that made him great. Smokey's family was big, really big. After his parents split up when he was just 3, things got even harder. His mother passed away when he was only 10 years old. That moment changed everything. After her death, Smokey moved in with his sister Geraldine and her husband, but they already had 10 kids of their own. So now Smokey was part of a packed house with tons of noise, energy, and daily chaos.
I slept with 2 of my nephews in a little bed. It was about as big a size as a twin bed, you know. So we were all piled up there and everything. But we didn't know we were poor, man.
Imagine trying to find a quiet corner to dream big when there are 12 kids running around. There was no privacy, no luxury, and barely enough to get by. Food wasn't always plentiful, and clothes were shared or handed down. But in all that madness, Smokey learned how to adapt. He learned patience, teamwork, and how to stand out without yelling.
But we didn't know we were poor, man, because everybody in the neighborhood was under those same conditions, you know. So I didn't realize I was poor until I moved out of there.
Money was tight, sometimes too tight. His family struggled with poverty, but they still stuck together. That tough environment made Smokey strong. He didn't grow up with excuses. He grew up with hustle. Music became his escape. While other kids were running around, Smokey was listening to records, soaking in every note. His mom used to play a lot of music before she passed, and those songs stayed with him. They lit a spark that never went out.
Even when I look back on it, because I had never been in a fight like that before. You know, I had a lot of fights when I was growing up, you know. But I had never been in a fight like that where boys were hitting each other in the head with baseball bats and knocking each other out with baseball bats and that kind of stuff, you know. It was just crazy.
Smokey Robinson's journey to fame wasn't just about talent. It was also about fighting through racism and rejection. He grew up in Detroit during a time when Black people faced serious hate and unfair treatment. Smokey knew the world wasn't equal, but he didn't let that stop him. Even though he had light skin and blue-green eyes, Smokey never forgot who he was. His uncle called him Smokey Joe to remind him to stay proud of his Black roots. That nickname stuck. So did the lessons about staying strong in a world that didn't always welcome him. In the early days of his career, racism showed up everywhere. When he toured the South with Motown, he and other Black artists were treated badly. Some hotels wouldn't let them stay, some restaurants wouldn't serve them. Sometimes they had to sleep on the bus or eat in the back of buildings. And when they performed, it was often in front of segregated crowds, Black on one side, white on the other.
I didn't experience until, you know, like a white person would come down to the neighborhood to do something or something like that, and everybody was this because the white person was there. So that was basically what it was. I didn't experience any white violence until I started to tour.
Yeah.
Even in the music business, there were walls. Record labels sometimes hid pictures of Black artists on albums so white buyers wouldn't know who was singing. That hurt, but Smokey didn't back down. He kept writing songs, he kept performing, and he kept believing that music could bring people together. He once said, "We're not going to just make Black music, we're going to make music for the world." And he did just that. Through all the racism and rejection, Smokey stayed focused. He became one of the most respected voices in Motown. He helped other artists rise too, proving that talent couldn't be denied forever.
I got to that point where I was just walking around and, you know, 5'11", and I'm walking around, I weigh 120 pounds, and I don't have any belts or...
Smokey Robinson seemed to have it all: fame, money, and success. But in his 40s, his life took a dark turn. It started when he was introduced to cocaine. At first, he didn't think it would be a big deal. He had stayed away from drugs and alcohol most of his life. But this was different. Cocaine felt like it gave him energy and focus. He thought he could control it. He was wrong. What started as something small quickly became a full-blown addiction. Smokey began using cocaine every day. He stopped caring about his health. He stopped showing up for people. His life began to fall apart. He lost weight fast. His clothes didn't even fit anymore. He had to use safety pins to keep his pants from falling down. He felt sick all the time, cold sweats, stomach pain, and chest tightness. But worst of all, he felt empty.
I hated me, for even letting myself get to that point, because if I could have sat down and written what I wanted my life to be, I would have written exactly what it was at that point. So why am I doing this to me?
Cocaine didn't just hurt Smokey's body, it broke his heart too. His marriage to Claudette Rogers, once full of love, started falling apart. The joy they once had was replaced with arguments, distance, and silence. Eventually, the strain became too much and they divorced in 1986. Friends noticed Smokey wasn't the same. One of them, actor Leon Kennedy, decided to help. He didn't just talk to Smokey, he prayed for him. Then he invited him to church. Smokey wasn't sure what to expect, but he went. That day changed everything. At the church, the pastor said things about Smokey's life that no one else could have known. Smokey felt like God was speaking directly to him. Right there in that moment, something powerful happened. Smokey felt the addiction leave him. He walked into that church an addict and walked out free. Since that day in 1986, Smokey Robinson has stayed clean. He never touched cocaine again. He says it was faith that saved him, not just from drugs, but from the darkness that had taken over his life. Now, Smokey shares his story to help others. He wants people to know there's hope even in the worst moments.
When I met her, I didn't even know she could sing. When I found out she could sing was when she moved away from the block. She moved to a place called the Brewster Projects.
Smokey Robinson has always been open about his life, but in 2023, he shocked fans when he spoke about something very personal. Yes, that Diana Ross. Yes, that Diana Ross. The same Diana he grew up with in Detroit. The same Diana who became a Motown legend just like him. They were close friends. They worked together a lot. And one day things went further. Smokey said the affair lasted about a year. At the time, he was still married to Claudette Rogers Robinson, his first wife and fellow singer in The Miracles. Smokey called the affair beautiful, but also admitted it was wrong. He said it just happened, he didn't plan it, but it hurt a lot of people.
We were just happy. Oh, we're going to have a baby. Because that's why she had come off the road. She'd come off the road.
His marriage was already under pressure. Smokey and Claudette had suffered a lot, especially after going through several miscarriages. That pain had already put a heavy weight on their hearts. The affair just made things worse. The trust was broken. The love they once had started to fade. Eventually, Claudette and Smokey divorced in 1986. They had been married for 27 years. The affair was just one of many problems, but it definitely played a part. Smokey later said Diana ended the affair. She knew Smokey still loved his wife. She didn't want to come between them any longer. Looking back, Smokey doesn't try to hide his feelings. He said he still loves Diana and always will. But he also knows his actions hurt people. He believes it's possible to love more than one person at the same time, even though it can lead to heartbreak. He learned that love isn't always simple. Talking about the affair wasn't easy for Smokey, but he chose to be honest. He wanted people to know the truth, not just the good parts, but the hard ones too. Smokey Robinson's career has not been without its challenges, especially when it comes to legal battles over his music rights. As a founding member of The Miracles and a major figure in the Motown era, he wrote countless hit songs. But as successful as his career was, it wasn't always smooth sailing when it came to owning his own work. One of the most notable legal issues Smokey faced was with his ex-wife, Claudette Rogers Robinson. They had been married for years, but when they divorced in 1986, things got messy over the rights to songs he had written during their marriage. Smokey had to deal with disputes over who owned the royalties and profits from many of his hits. Claudette was awarded half of the copyrights for songs written between 1958 and 1985. However, this wasn't the end of it. In the years that followed, Smokey decided he wanted to regain control over his music. Under the 1976 Copyright Act, artists could reclaim the rights to their work after 35 years. Smokey fought to have Claudette's claim over his songs reduced, and the legal battle continued for several years. Eventually, in 2014, the two reached a settlement, ending the dispute. But it wasn't easy. The fight over song rights affected Smokey both personally and professionally. But Smokey's legal struggles didn't end there. He has also been an advocate for artists' rights on a much larger scale. He became very vocal about the issues facing musicians who recorded music before 1972. At that time, artists weren't getting paid for their work if it was still being played or sold. In 2018, Smokey testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, speaking out about the unfairness in how older songs were treated. He called it ludicrous that artists weren't getting paid for their classic tracks. His efforts helped push forward the Music Modernization Act, which was passed in 2018. This law aimed to ensure artists got paid for their work, even if it was recorded decades ago. In 2004, Smokey Robinson faced a serious health scare that nearly took his life. He was diagnosed with a rare and life-threatening condition, a life-threatening battle with heart disease. He had to undergo surgery, which was a wake-up call for him. Smokey knew he had to make significant changes to save his life. The surgery and the recovery process made Smokey reevaluate his life. He realized how fragile his health had become and how important it was to take care of his body and mind. It was at this time that Smokey turned to his spirituality. He found solace in his faith and the support of his loved ones. His experience led him to reflect deeply on his past, his choices, and the power of faith. The heart surgery forced him to slow down and consider what truly mattered in life. Through prayer and connecting with his spiritual side, Smokey began to find peace. The deep connection he built with his faith gave him the strength to continue moving forward and fighting for his life. This health scare was a turning point for Smokey. It was no longer just about surviving, it was about living with purpose, joy, and gratitude. His recovery wasn't just about physical healing, it was also a spiritual awakening. Smokey found strength in his faith, and it helped him feel more connected to the world around him. Smokey Robinson's journey shows that no matter the struggle, change and healing are possible with faith and perseverance. If his story inspired you, share it with others who might need hope. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and transformation. Let's keep the conversation going.